Hi, thanks for being with us. The U.S. is pressing forward with its strikes against Iran as the White House pushes for Tehran to make a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump posted this video of an attack on the central Iranian city of Isfahan overnight. The exact target has not been revealed, but the city was previously targeted in U.S. strikes last year as a possible home for the country's enriched uranium. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. is not ruling out any options in its operation, including the possibility of putting boots on the ground in Iran.
Our adversary right now thinks there are 15 different ways we could come at them with boots on the ground. And guess what? There are. So if we needed to, we could execute those options on behalf of the President of the United States and this department. Or maybe we don't have to use them at all. Maybe negotiations work, or maybe there's a different approach. But the point is to be unpredictable in that. Certainly not let anybody know what you're willing to do or not do.
The war with Iran continues to cause energy prices to surge globally. Gas prices here in the U.S. are now above $4 a gallon for the first time since 2022. That is over a dollar increase since the start of the war. Oil prices are also on the rise. Brent crude rose to $115 a barrel on Monday, and those costs are being felt by people here in the U.S. President Trump has repeatedly alleged that short-term pain would lead to long-term gain and that energy prices will quickly recover once the war ends, a timeline which is still uncertain. But now there are concerns the recent strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure may have shifted those recovery capabilities. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady has more.
Oh, it was a pretty significant day, right? This is the first time that we have seen gas prices rise above $4 a gallon for the national average in nearly 4 years. And we've talked about this before. It's not just the pain at the pump, the price that you and I pay to fill up our gas tank. It's also rising diesel prices, which impact the cost for truckers to transport goods from point A to point B. It's also rising fertilizer prices, with the Strait of Hormuz being a key choke point, not just for oil and gas, but also the chemicals needed to make fertilizer. This is an important planting season for farmers. So there's so many different ripple effects when you think about rising energy prices that could actually see inflation become more seeped into the economy and sort of impact those regular goods that you and I purchase at the store that wouldn't necessarily come to mind originally when you think about those rising energy prices. Now, there are questions about, is this war going to come to a close soon? We might see a resolution between these two sides, and that automatically brings up the question of, okay, so if it were to end tomorrow, if the Strait of Hormuz were to open, when would we see some relief? And it's really going to depend on the industry, because this is all happening initially because of those rising oil prices. Now, if you were to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, it wouldn't just mean, boom, oil goes back down immediately, because you also have energy infrastructure that has been closed offline that's going to take a month or two to get back up. And then there's been energy infrastructure that's actually been significantly damaged in some of these bombings and these missile attacks. And so we could be looking at a multi-month sort of down the line for those, and then sort of work back from there. Then that impacts the price at the pump, and then those items that have gone up that are more widespread in the economy, you're, depending on the industry, looking at sort of a 1 to 2 months for how it comes down to maybe even 6 months at the most. So that's why everyone's focused on that date when things close and you can kind of see things start to wind back down. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Kelly O'Grady, thank you. And you can track how the war in Iran is affecting gas and oil prices at cbsnews.com/gas prices. President Trump told CBS News today he's not yet ready to abandon efforts to force Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to all shipping traffic. During a phone call with our Weijia Jiang, the president also reiterated his frustration that other countries had not yet sent military assets to join the conflict. CBS News Pentagon reporter Eleanor Watson joins me now. So, Ellie, what more are we learning first about the U.S. strike on Isfahan overnight?
Well, Lindsay, the president really announced this strike by posting on Truth Social a video of explosions at an ammunition depot in Isfahan. U.S. officials tell us that that strike, B-1 bombers used 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs that can drill down deep underground to hit a target. In the video, you can see multiple explosions, which are likely the result of the ammunition in the facility blowing up after it was hit. Isfahan may sound familiar, as you mentioned before, because just outside of that city is one of the nuclear sites the U.S. targeted last summer. The Tomahawk missiles launched from a submarine did cause heavy damage to that site, but it's estimated that much of Iran's near weapons grade enriched uranium is underneath the rubble at that site. The bombing last night did not attack that nuclear site, but it does kind of serve as a reminder that that highly enriched uranium is still within Iran.
And we heard Defense Secretary Hegseth say that the point here is to be unpredictable with this war in reference to the possibility of boots on the ground. How is Iran receiving this threat?
Well, this week, Iran's Speaker of Parliament said the regime is ready to punish any American ground forces. At the same time, Secretary Hegseth today again did not rule out the possibility of sending forces in on the ground. Secretary Hegseth, in the soundbite before, said Iran right now thinks the U.S. could use ground forces for about 15 different missions. And according to Hegseth, the U.S. could do all, some, or none of those, depending on how diplomatic talks shake out. Iran has publicly denied there are any negotiations going on, but Secretary Hegseth today said they are, and they're making some progress. To keep the pressure on, the U.S. is continuing to send forces into the Middle East to add the option of limited ground raids to the president's arsenal if talks fail. We've seen in the past, though, Lindsay, that President Trump doesn't always wait for the diplomatic course to fully run out before he turns to the military.
And the administration has repeatedly said the war is almost done, that Iran's capabilities are rapidly deteriorating. March 9th, he said in a phone interview with CBS News that the war is very complete. But then we continue to hear the Pentagon say this week, these next few days will be decisive. Where do things actually stand?
The difficult problem right in front of the administration right now is that Strait of Hormuz that Kelly was talking about, because while the U.S. is pummeling Iran with strikes, they still pose some threat with their missiles, their drones, and their speedboats to shipping in that strait. And if there is any risk to a tanker, many companies will not make that trip.
Okay, Eleanor Watson, thank you. Let's now bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez. So we just talked to Ellie about Secretary Hegseth saying we need to be unpredictable. But look, Americans at home want to know what is going on. And Arweja Jang, as I mentioned, spoke with President Trump. What is he saying about gas prices as they go up?
He's saying they're going to come back down, Lindsay, and that they're going to come back down really quickly. He insists that he is way ahead of schedule when it comes to this war. And so as soon as the war in Iran wraps up, then gas prices will come tumbling back down. It is worth noting that that is not what industry analysts are predicting. They are saying that it is going to take some time. But the president continues to push this message. In fact, he did it again in the Oval Office just a short time ago when he was asked about gas prices. Take a listen to his answer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down. I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's really optimistic, especially when you consider the situation in the Strait of Hormuz right now. If he wraps up his military endeavors without securing the strait and enabling the passage of oil tankers in and out of the Persian Gulf, then it certainly could take a lot longer for those gas prices to come down, Lindsay.
Well, and one of the president's arguments, Nancy, also is that the U.S. doesn't get most of its oil from the strait, and so it is not the most pressing issue. But we also know that Brent crude is really what sets the price internationally. Right. Our U.S. gas prices are also based on what other countries are paying, and so it wouldn't necessarily be, okay, the strait is still blocked, it doesn't impact us.
Exactly. It does impact us even if we are not getting the lion's share of our oil from the Persian Gulf. We live in a global economy, and our prices are affected by prices overseas. But the fact that we don't get most of our oil from the Gulf has kind of prompted President Trump to express frustration with other countries, including NATO allies, who he says need to step up and secure the Gulf themselves. In fact, he went as far as to say today that the U.S. might be pulling out entirely, and that other countries, if they want the oil, need to come in and get it.
Nancy Cortez, we always appreciate you. Thank you.